Hey guys, welcome back to F1 Hub, and today we're going to review the 2024 British Grand Prix. So I'm very excited. It's my home Grand Prix, essentially. It's the race I look forward to most. So this is going to be really fun. If you are new to this channel, please like and subscribe, and let's get into it. FP1 started, and it was Lando Norris topping the session, ahead of Lance Stroll and Oscar Piastri. In other words, for anyone who doesn't know F1, it basically doesn't matter, because there's no way Lance Stroll's second. Anyway, Lando Norris nearly had a crash in the closing stages with the Red Bull of Max Verstappen, the two trying to repeat Austria, but on a lesser scale. Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri had an issue. Oscar Piastri having a sort of mechanical failure in the closing stages of FP1. There was many rookies also out in FP1, and that include Oliver Behrman. Obviously, he's got his contract for next year. He's going to be replacing Nico Hülkenberg at the team, but the future of Kevin Magnussen remains unknown. We also had the first Argentinian driver in a long time driving Logan Sargent's FP1 car. And it was also Isaac Hadjar driving Sergio Perez's Red Bull. At least that gives another excuse for Sergio Perez to be absolutely rubbish this weekend. Also driving as a rookie was Jack Doohan, trying to get the car through to next year. And try and, replace Esteban Ocon in the Alpine. I feel bad for him, the fact that he actually wants the privilege to do that. In the opening 20 minutes of the session, Yuki Tsunoda beached his RB in the gravel in what is his first major incident of the year. So let's head into FP2 now, and immediately Max Verstappen was struggling with his car. This is the same thing that Red Bull do every single week, and they still end up taking pole position by half a second. I mean Austria, essentially. Lando Norris also pushed the boundaries of his McLaren, nearly going off into the gravel, and the same could be said for Charles Leclerc. The two contenders for second place, actually no, not really contenders, because Ferrari are bad now. Yeah. However, that didn't stop Charles Leclerc. He went off the track in the final sector following Maggotts and Beckett's. And if that wasn't good enough, he decided to do it all again. Except from this time he managed to save what could have been a massive crash for the Scuderia Ferrari driver. He wasn't the only one off the road, as Pierre Gasly, who has a 50-place grid penalty, which means he's probably going to have to start in Copse Corner for the British Grand Prix, went off the road. And then he wasn't the only one, as Kevin Magnussen also went off the road towards the final sector of the lap. Kevin Magnussen really needs to try and get a seat next year, but let's just finish off with Lando Norris topping FP2 as well. So there's absolutely no ways that Lando Norris won't take pole position and dominate the Grand Prix. So let's jump into FP3 now, and it was in the rain, so that obviously gets me excited. The only time I'm excited in free practice. In fact, I was so excited when Lewis Hamilton started to go to the top of the timesheets, which he didn't stay, that I forgot it was a free practice session. Anyway, Pierre Gasly was the early one to beat his Alpine. He starts last with a 50-place grid penalty, spinning into the gravel, so he's going to start last, spin into the gravel, and essentially no research. Meanwhile, Max Verstappen went off as well, but he managed to keep his car, but also off the road went the Ferrari of Charles Leclerc. After FP2, he really wants to get out of that Ferrari, except for he couldn't find a suitable place to crash it. To also trying to find a way out of his car was Valtteri Bottas, who went off the track in turn 1 and then spun off in turn 2, still trying to get a way out of his Sauber contract and go to another team before the end of the year. However, the privilege of topping the session went to George Russell, ahead of Lewis Hamilton and Lando Norris. Now, I really like that top three, so let's just hope it stays in qualifying. Speaking of qualifying, look, there's a Red Bull off, and before we even see who the Red Bull actually is, our automatic response to Sergio Perez. And guess who it was? Sergio Perez. Sergio Perez spun off into the gravel for the 1 billionth time, and that brought out the red flag. And then we saw another Red Bull off the road, and I automatically thought it was, oh no, wait, it can't be Sergio Perez, he's out of the session. It was Max Verstappen who gave him floor damage and gave us an exciting qualifying for once after Austria domination. Verstappen going into the gravel meant an exciting end to Q1, and Joe Granu, who is my worst driver of the year, finally managed to out-qualify Valtteri Bottas. He was out along with Magnussen, Ocon, Perez and Gasly. So it's back to Bahrain then for Alpine, isn't it? Moving on to Q2 then, everyone was fighting hard, and as the track's evolution was about a second, we had Max Verstappen in the drop zone. Sadly, he made it through, and Charles Leclerc was the big knockout. And I was going to say there was an almighty shock out in Q1, but it's not an almighty shock when Perez is out, is it? Leclerc, Sargent, Tsunoda, Joe and Ricciardo were out, and it's the third time in 4 races that Logan Sargent has out-qualified Perez. In the early ones in Q3, Lewis Hamilton was 34 thousandths clear of his teammate George Russell. Verstappen was only 4th, Hülkenberg was in 6th, and I thought Hamilton had the pole in the bag. That was until George Russell took it away by 0.2 of a second and continues destroying #wash, that is Lewis Hamilton. So we head into the Grand Prix next, and I can't wait. It could be in the rain. I hope it is in the rain, and maybe, just maybe, Lewis Hamilton can win the race. Please. So we went into the Grand Prix then, and George Russell got a good launch, unfortunately cutting off Lewis Hamilton. And the big loser off the start was Lando Norris, with Max Verstappen fighting him through as it went 3 wide in the opening corners. Someone who wasn't so lucky was Alexander Albon, who got nearly clobbered by his teammate Logan Sargent, as Joe Guan Yu got involved too, as Fernando Alonso had a lockup. However, we cut, and it was just people talking about, is it going to rain for the next 15 laps? Lewis Hamilton got past George Russell, and I suddenly woke up. My favourite driver was in the lead, until he wasn't, when Lewis Hamilton and George Russell went both off the road, which invited the McLarens into play, with Lando Norris getting past George Russell, which cost Lewis Hamilton, especially since Lando Norris just fought his way by the very next lap to take back the lead. Lewis Hamilton hadn't led a lap of a Grand Prix so far this year, but at least he'd done it now. Lando Norris sauntered off into the distance as Oscar Piastri went past George Russell to get up to the podium. He was denied a podium last year, so let's hope that doesn't happen this year. Then he got past Lewis Hamilton, and then it was just back to the normal racing as Hamilton tried to chase past Oscar Piastri. Then it started drying up again as the rain intensified. Lando Norris nearly lost it, which nearly invited Oscar Piastri, who was closing in. Everyone boxed then for the into tyres, as they were on the wrong combated tyre. Piastri was very much greatly undercut and fell all the way down, which meant it was Norris, Hamilton and Verstappen completing the runners, and George Russell trying to keep up too in his Mercedes after falling down himself. And then after that, Lando Norris boxed a lap later than Lewis Hamilton, and all of a sudden I thought maybe Lewis Hamilton could win, and he took the lead from Lando Norris, both on the soft commander tyre. Verstappen was on the hards, and Kevin Magnussen nearly lost it, though that's irrelevant. What also happened was George Russell. He was out of the race, meaning that if Hamilton wins, he would take a huge chunk in that gap between him and his teammate. Meanwhile, Max Verstappen fought his way past Lando Norris to take second place in the Grand Prix, which meant any hope of Verstappen not winning was completely disappeared, except it didn't, and Lewis Hamilton finally won a Grand Prix, beating Max Verstappen home by 1.4 seconds, with Lando Norris completing the top 3. And of course, that meant my next video of why Lewis Hamilton has finished so far this year is going to have to wait. Lewis Hamilton's win in Silverstone means there's just no way I can post a video about it. My next one will be the 2025 grid predictions, and if you want to see that, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.